Hello and welcome to Play the Game 4. I'm William Brougham, and on today's show we've got two very talented and special guests. We've got clay target shooter and land speed racer Gemma Dunn. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. And we've also got former Rugby Union international player Ben Evans.
Good to be here.
Who's now based in Sydney as a coach. First of all, Gemma, I want to ask you, tell us a bit about your sport.
So land speed racing is an old sort of hot rod style sport. We race out on salt flats in South Australia and Lake Ghana. And we race over 9 miles, but we have 3 timed miles, and you have to get up to speed by the second mile and hold it for 3 miles. Land speed racing it's something that it's very hard to explain to people, but when you're racing, it feels like you're driving on ice, but it's one of those strange feelings, sort of when you're flying in a plane where you are going extremely fast, but with the lack of depth perception and everything.
Huge adrenaline rush.
Yeah, huge adrenaline rush. It's over in 50 seconds and you don't even know what's happening half the time, and then it's over and then you sort of process it afterwards.
It's not the only adrenaline rush you get because you're also a clay target shooter.
Yes, I was the son my parents never really had, I think, in a way. But so I do clay target shooting, have represented Australia at multiple World Cup events, junior and senior. And I do Olympic traps, so where the targets fly out from the bunker away from you. Yeah. So they go at about 110 kilometres an hour, and you have 0.1 of a second between the time you pick it up to actually hitting the target. Otherwise, it gets out of range pretty quick. So
for the two sports, are you mixing with two very different types of people?
Yes, absolutely. Land speed racing, you have a very community, amateur motor racing sort of feel. It's not a professional sport, whereas with clay target shooting, a lot of these people that I am competing with, we have the common goal of trying to get to the Olympic Games. So it's very much a high performance sport. We are very structured like a high performance sport with the Sports Commission, and it's extremely tough in the fact that we can all be just as good as each other, but it can come down to the day, the way you see one target, and that one target can make an entire difference to your team selection at events.
Ben Evans, on to you. Former Rugby International Union player for Wales, now based in Sydney. Tell us about your sport.
My sport, it's always been rugby union. I think being from Wales, it's something that's in your blood, it's in your DNA, it's what you grew up with. When you went to school, you didn't have choices, you played rugby. That was it. And I think when I was growing up, I was always aspiring to play for the Welsh rugby team like any young boy does, and I was lucky enough to do that. The game turned professional, I think it was in my second year of university. I decided to finish university, and then I turned professional a year after, and it was the best thing I could have done. I wanted to finish my sports science degree, got into it, and then rugby's been really, really good to me. I think I had 17 years playing professional rugby. And I'm very lucky in the sense of what the game gave me. I think it probably took me a long time to realise it, and it wasn't until towards the end of my career that I really realised how much I've been blessed with, how much it's given me. You know, and not just some wonderful skills, you know, as a human being, but friends, what it taught me. I think the thing about playing in a team, in an elite team sport, is it develops you and makes you a better human being fundamentally. But I think the friends is a big thing. You know, it's the whole community of rugby, which is worldwide. And I was lucky enough that when I moved to Sydney, I automatically had a network to plug into. You know, friends, people I played against, had fights with, had beers with.
You're a coach now here in Sydney in women's rugby. Is that about giving something back, do you think?
That's it. I think you've just nailed it. I think what rugby gave me, I suppose what I'm trying now to do is give just as much back to the game. And I think in Australia, it probably needs a helping hand. I think, you know, I've spoken with friends about it and other coaches. There are so many people passionate about the game, mums and dads and youngsters who want to play the game. But we're fighting a battle at the moment. against other sports that are really attractive. They're not just about the money, but you know, your AFL, rugby league, and soccer. You know, I think those three alone, even if you forget cricket, because it's more of your summer sport, but they've eclipsed rugby union. And it's sad, but I think it's a case of all hands on deck.
Yes.
Let's do all that we can, and I think if everybody does a little bit, and I feel like I'm doing my bit, whether it be, you know, last year I was helping out with the Waratahs under-20s and under-19s, and that was great. And then this year I've moved on doing more stuff with women's rugby, which is fantastic. And I think the parts of rugby union where you've seen a bit of diversity, where you're going into sevens rugby for men and women, women's rugby, wheelchair rugby,
Yes.
they're all doing really well. But the hard thing, and it's, like I said, it's where we need a bit of help, is the 15-a-side game is struggling a little bit.
And we're going to touch upon your involvement in wheelchair rugby later. But I think right now, Ben, let's take a look at you in action.
We'll have another chance now as Dwayne Peel prepares to feed the scrummage just 5 metres from the All Black line. The forwards go for the big surge themselves. They might have the All Black pack in trouble. Wales drive on. It's squirted loose. Penalty try to Wales. Tougher heading does penalise New Zealand at last. Penalty try to Wales. This will bring them within striking range.
Well, hey, that's given me a hell of a lot of pleasure, because when I was playing out at half, our forwards were destroyed, and it's such a nice...
You're watching Play the Game 4. I'm William Brougham, and what a wonderful clip. Ben Evans, former Rugby Union international player for Wales. The adrenaline and the passion. What I want to know is, what makes you so passionate about rugby union?
It's like I said before, I think it's in my DNA, it's in my blood. And that first clip there, where we're celebrating with Graham Henry, who went on to become the New Zealand coach, that day there, you'd think we'd almost won the World Cup. But as a Welshman, all we'd actually done is beaten England. Now, it was great. I'd never, you know, not have that day again or have it to look back on. But what we actually did that day was to stop England winning the Grand Slam. And on that day, because we beat them, it gifted the last ever Five Nations trophy to Scotland, who the day before had beaten France. So that was huge. So Scotland have the last ever Five Nations. They keep it up in Murrayfield. England don't have it, just because we beat them. For us, we had nothing to lose, you know, nothing to lose or win on that game, really. But beating England was everything. And that little clip afterwards was playing against New Zealand, 2003. We genuinely believed that day we had a pushover try against them, penalty try. Up to about that 59 minutes, I think we thought we could beat them. And the last 20 minutes tell a different story, where they scored 3 or 4 tries and put us to the sword. But that was awesome.
On the pitch, it's a battlefield. Off
Yeah.
the pitch, what is it like between the rival teams?
Do you know what? I think as rugby players, what we're all about is that the fact that we can still, you know, have a beer. Sometimes after the game, it doesn't have to be in excess, but you can have a beer, rub shoulders with the guy who you've been knocking lumps out of, and, you know, it has, like you said, it's been a battle. But then you drop that, the game's finished. And what you always see with rugby is a level of humility after the game. Win, lose or draw, be humble. And you see it creep into the modern game a little bit, where there's probably a bit too much showboating, a bit too much in your face. Well, maybe rugby's becoming a little bit like soccer, but I hope it doesn't become too much like soccer. That's something that I'm really passionate about. And when we coach kids, you know, they stay humble.
Good.
It's about working hard, be passionate about your sport and the team that you're representing, but stay humble.
Because that's what you sometimes see in soccer. You know, the money goes to people's heads and it becomes almost like the lifestyle for celebrity status. What you're saying is it's got to be about the grassroots sport.
Massively. It doesn't seem right that you could have 17-year-old millionaires in soccer. It doesn't seem right to me. But the grassroots development, you know, soccer's got that nailed down. It's quite an easy sport to go to. You just throw the ball up, realise where you score and sort out the offside rule. rugby union's got a lot more complexities to it and a lot more rules, but it's a tougher one. Rugby union's got challenges ahead of it in order to compete against those other three very dominant sports in Australia. And the public school game, the private school game, is doing well. That's probably what's going to help the Wallabies and the Waratahs with their flow of players. But it's all the others. It's hugely competitive because in the UK we haven't got many sports really. You know, rugby union's gone. Well, it is a very elitist sport. It thrived around private schools, didn't it? I know it's struggling, but these private schools now are playing AFL, rugby league, and soccer. And for your young white Eastern Suburbs kid, you know, young Johnny's there, and mummy and daddy don't want Johnny getting battered anymore, playing against, you know, Islander and Polynesian kids, because they see it to be a disadvantage.
Ben, thanks very much. Gemma, let's see you in action. That's Gemma Dunn there, clay target shooter and land speed racer. What an amazing car.
Yeah, it's pretty spectacular. I'm very proud of my dad for building that, yeah.
And it's called Rosie.
Yeah.
And it's got an AC/DC connection. Can you tell us a bit about that?
So my dad and I have a really big affinity with AC/DC. It's something that we sort of did when I was little, is listen to them in the car. And so the previous car that we had was named Thunderstruck after an AC/DC song. And so Rosie's sort of come about because with the engine that's in the car and the size of the car, there's a whole lot of engine compared to the size of the car. So we sort of just immediately thought, okay, well, the song Whole Lot of Rosie sort of captures that a little bit, keeps with the theme of the AC/DC, and so, yeah, the car's name's Rosie. Yeah.
What do you think so far have been the highlights of both the shooting and the land speed racing for you?
With land speed racing, becoming the fastest Australian woman is one thing that I never really thought that I would aim to do, but as soon as I got into the sport and found out that it was easily achievable in the car that we did, that we have, that was my goal, is to just surpass the 202 mile an hour mark for the previous female, and within 4 runs I did 234 miles an hour, which is close to 385 kilometres an hour, and I was on my green peas when I did it. I wasn't fully licensed on the road.
And you're also a member of the prestigious 200 mile per hour club, aren't you?
Yeah, so to be a member of the 200 mile an hour club, you don't only have to go over 200 mile an hour, you have to set a record whilst doing so. So the records are class-based within the car. It doesn't matter whether you're man, woman, child, whoever, it's all about the car and what the car can do. So setting a record in that class is hard enough in itself. So you only get one hat. It's kind of like a bag of green with cricket. You only get one hat, and that is it. That is your recognition for the many hours spent
now with
on the car.
shooting, you went to Korea. Tell us.
Yeah, so I went to Korea World University Games in 2015. We, as a team, were the first Australian team members to win the medal for the entire uni team. I won bronze with Catherine Skinner and Indy Gladman, and that was pretty spectacular because that was just prior to Catherine winning her Rio 2016 gold medal. And my other major achievement within shooting was shooting a world qualifying score at the Nationals in Perth a couple of years ago, and then making it my first Open World Cup team. I was the only girl to shoot that score and the only girl to go to Cyprus World Cup. And I there beat the previous bronze medalist from the Rio Olympics in that event, my first Open World Cup. Yeah.
Congratulations, Gemma.
Thank you.
Ben, what's your career highlight?
There's a few along the way, and I think beating England was just one as a child that our whole success, our whole season could be based on as long as we beat the English.
Everyone wants to beat the English.
They do. And I think
Victimised.
it goes back to those Saxon days when they dominated the Celts and pushed us into the mountains.
Payback.
But it is, you know, we are the smaller nation, you know, as far as Ireland, Wales and Scotland are concerned, and, you know, England is the big, bad, ugly sister, really. And you do.
It's true.
There's that air of confidence about you English. And, no, I think it's something you just want to do. And we beating England that day in '99 was huge. And then I think getting to the quarterfinals, 1999 World Cup in Cardiff, got to the quarterfinals, which was a minimum really for a host team. You want to get to the quarterfinals, and we lost to the winners. We lost to Australia. Put up a good show. It was a good battle, but Australia were, you know, the better team. So getting to the quarterfinals was a big thing, and I think I was also part of a genre whereby Graham Henry came in. I think it was a big shift in Welsh rugby where we became so much more professional on the field and off the field, and he started something. Whenever anyone says he started it, and after my time was done, they carried on with that improvement and they started winning Grand Slams, getting further in the World Cup. And it was huge. So I definitely say I think it was the '99 World Cup, beating England probably.
Ben, before I ask you about your interest, both of you, in fact, outside your sport, can you tell us a bit about wheelchair rugby and your involvement?
Yeah, do you know, the first time I'd seen it was on TV, and I think it might have been the World Championships, and I saw it in the Olympics as well. And it was amazing. And I got to see some guys who I've since met. I felt like a teenager in their presence. I was like, shall I get them to sign my autograph book? You know, they're like Riley Batt, Chris Bond. These guys are legends, you know. And watching the way that they play rugby just epitomizes everything about the team sport and rugby. What it's all about is a huge amount of commitment. The way they throw themselves into those collisions. It's huge. It's the way I was coached to play. And I love it. And then there's been a few occasions, and I know you and I have spoken about this, where I got to play it a couple of times. They were exhibition games.
The strength.
Yeah, it's a big upper body thing, you know, and there's some guys are, you know, powering those wheelchairs, and they might be short of a limb, you know, a hand and stuff, but their level of commitment and how they perform, you know, it's like, it's catch the ball, pass the ball, power the wheelchair, all with this upper body thing. It's phenomenal.
Ben, what I want to know now is, what are your interests outside rugby? Particularly, I want to touch upon your involvement in mental health awareness.
Yeah, I think it started off, I struggled towards the end of my rugby career, and I, you know, went to a bit of a dark place, and with the support of friends, family, and the rugby club that I was playing at the time, which was Moseley Rugby Club in the UK, I pulled through it. And it was a tough thing. And I think some people throughout life, there can be a trigger. You know, it can be a sport coming to an end, an injury, crisis. But I just think it's something that we all need to talk about. And I think it is good to talk about it. Some of us, it's written all over us, that we're struggling, that we've got a battle. And then there are the others, the ones that we don't know about, the ones that hide it really, really well. And they probably suffer in silence. And I remember when I struggled, there were a few friends of mine who'd been hiding it really well, and they kind of came out of the woodwork and we got talking about it, and it just that air of relief when you know you're not the only one. And I think it puts a little bit more of a spin on it that maybe sometimes it's not quite as bad as you think it is. And there's lots of really good movements out there now, you know, fighting this battle against, you know, trying to promote the mental health awareness. That's probably the best way to look at it.
Because particularly among men, there is still a stigma, isn't there, about admitting that you may have mental health issues.
Oh, it's the old British thing, isn't it? The stiff upper lip.
Yeah.
You You know, you don't show your emotions, and you just deal with it and get on with it. And that's probably what makes it worse. And, you know, there are certain young rugby players, more mature rugby players, ex-teammates who I've reached out to. And I'd like to think, you know, through my experience and how I got through it, that maybe I've helped them in some way to cope with their issues.
Because you do mentor young adults, don't you?
Yeah, you know, I think every time you coach someone, you're stepping into some kind of mentoring capacity, because you're not just teaching them about the sport. I think you're teaching them good habits as a human being, because if they're not successful and they don't make it to the top as an elite, you know, performer, surely we can still give them some good fundamentals to take them on into the next stage of their life, whether it just be work or just about being a really good human being.
Because you really are giving so much back to the community. You coach rugby players, you mentor young people, you help with mental health awareness, but you also feed the homeless.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think if I've suggested it to a few people that, you know, a couple of people who might have some mental health issues, it's probably just to get a reality check sometimes. You know, to realise that we do have a lot of good things in our life, most of us. But then when you go and do something like that, you go into the streets of Sydney and you see almost an underworld that some people are so blinkered to. And they just take those blinkers off, go and realise. And, you know, my wife, wonderful human being, but then she felt almost kind of liberated. Just those blinkers came off her and she was like, wow, I didn't realise the depth of despair that some of these people on the streets are struggling with. And it's enlightening. It's something I do regularly. I'm doing it again next week. I try to do it at least once or twice a month, and it gives me my reality check.
Fantastic, Ben, and thanks. It's very inspiring and very humbling as well to hear all of that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Gemma, what are your interests outside the sports that you do?
Well, it's a tough one, because at the moment I'm very engrossed in my world of sport.
They take up your life, don't they?
Yeah, it's and particularly going between the two. I mean, if I said I was just a clay target shooter, I would say my interest is land speed racing or vice versa. But at the moment, I'm just being a young person trying to establish myself within life and, you know, my place, and just trying to buy a house in Sydney, just simple things, you know. You spend so much time of your life dedicated to your sport and what's the next step and getting on the next plane, that sometimes just getting back to reality and back to, okay, if I don't quite become so successful in what I want to do, what else have I got out there? So my real passion is starting to develop giving back to my sport as well, such as Ben. I am now a coaching and membership development manager within shooting, so I don't just try and compete. I now am trying to develop the grassroots through my own experiences as a young female within a very male-dominated sport. So that is a passion, and I work with other young shooters, up-and-coming people who don't quite know how to handle or find their position within the ranks and things like that as well. So that's what I do. I can't really escape it.
It's your life,
it follows me everywhere I go.
In the video we watched, we saw your father and your brother.
Yep.
Do you think, particularly the land speed racing, it's brought your family closer together?
Oh, 100%. We are the fastest family out there, and something about that, I'm extremely proud of my dad for his skills in craftsmanship of the car. And my brother, he's in motor racing within drifting and things like that as well. So he's just expanded outside of that. And he's actually been asked to drive another gentleman's car who was a founding member of our association. So that sort of thing that people look to us as a family and see, oh, this is so cool, you know, like there's a young girl and her brother and her dad doing something together, a bit out of the ordinary. But we do something together, and we go down to the workshop on a Tuesday night and build the car with pizza. Like, that is how we built the car, Tuesday night, pizza and workshops. So it was a fantastic thing for a family to do. My mum, my poor mum, she has to watch all of us fling ourselves down this racetrack, but she...
a sports widow.
Yes. Oh, so I feel so bad for her. She doesn't come to the start line to watch us get strapped in the car or anything, but it's just something about you know, my dad, I do have my life, like my life is in his hands. Like, he gave me my life and it's in his hands, and I completely trust him. There's that level of trust that you just get on another level. So,
I've got to ask you the killer question. Which of your two sports do you prefer?
Oh no, that's a horrible question.
I've got to ask it.
I don't. That's really tough, just because they're so different. In some ways, people could say they're both adrenaline-seeking, but I find shooting is incredibly calming. You have to have such a mental toughness to compete in clay target shooting. It is insane, and there's so many cross relations between the two in that regard. I like land speed racing because it's something different. It's a really good talking point. Not many people know about it. It's something that I'm trying to build awareness about. But out of the two, no, I can't separate them.
Too
They're
difficult.
yeah, it's way too difficult.
What are your hopes, Gemma, for the future?
So for the future, I want to, my focus at the moment is more on our land speed racing. We're trying to develop a good network of sponsors, and we are working on a cross partnership with another female racer, not in land speed racing. So we're trying to develop a women's only team. It's just brand new, but the sort of idea is being floated. And I just want to build awareness about our sport. You know, it's something that a lot of people can come and do, and it's a fantastic experience. So, and as a young female, I think it's important to get other young girls trying different things, you know, breaking out of that norm of the normal thing that you would generally pick as a sport.
I think it's awesome that you're kind of pioneering and kicking those doors open for sports that would be closed off to women.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
You know,
yeah,
be a pioneer, be different, go and kick down more doors.
yeah, yeah.
And if you're there kind of as the flag bearer, leading more women to get into,
Yeah.
you know, the shooting or the racing, then so be
It's
it.
very important. You know, we can't be limited nowadays, and we're not limited. I mean, we never were, but there is that perception that, you know, oh, there's so many blokes out here, like, I don't really know if I belong. You belong. Just make sure that you do you, and they'll accept you.
Well,
no
best
matter
of
what.
luck. And Ben, you're very much involved with women in rugby, aren't you?
Yeah.
What are your hopes for the future?
Do you know what? I think that growth in women's rugby has been huge, and I think when you come from nothing, you will just automatically see growth. Even if it's just one person the next day and then the day after there's two people, you're automatically going to see growth, which is great. And I hope you get that in your sports as well.
Absolutely.
I think women's rugby's got a lot to learn from men's rugby. And the bit that I love about coaching the Waratahs women's team right now is there's a lot of diversity in the team, which is fantastic. And where there's a huge success of what 15s rugby is about, it covers all women and men of all shapes and sizes. There's a position on the field for everyone. For someone of your build, my build, everything. It covers everyone. You're not going to get lost in 15-a-side rugby union. We'll find something for you. And it's, like rugby union is, it's all inclusive.
Thanks so much, Ben. Our guests today have been Ben Evans and Gemma Dunn. I've been William Brougham, and you've been watching Play the Game 4. Until next time, bye-bye.